interview achievements of the industry of the Republic of Tatarstan. This is 100% Tatarstan, the project of the intellectual space, and here we have the Deputy Minister of Prime Minister, Minister of Trade and Industry of Republic of Tatarstan, Albert Karimov. Albert? Good morning. Yeah. Hello, everybody. Tatarstan, objectively, is one of the most advanced regions in Russia, and what makes it such a success? Just geographically convenient location, natural resources, or industrial potential. And yes, sure thing, we have some very important key factors which define the position of Republic of Tatarstan, and for example, the fact that we have natural resources, and although we exhaust it gradually, so that's the first thing. If we talk about logistics, from the viewpoint of the industry, we might be not exactly the most in the most beneficial location. We don't have big waterways, and probably we would have better chances to promote our products. I believe that the Tatarstan location and its success is based on one hand on the history which we've been through, and the history which contributed into the renovation, reconstruction, and reforms in economy which we had in the beginning of the Second World War, because a lot of plants were evacuated to Kazan. Then later on in the Soviet Union, we realized a lot of infrastructural projects, and this moving of the industry, it happened in other republics of Soviet Union as well. And during uneasy years of the 90s, last century, we managed to save what we had in the Soviet Union, and we took care of all industrial enterprises with the support of the first president of Tatarstan, Shami, who supported our industry. We privatized companies in our special way, thanks to which we managed to keep companies in afloat, and based on this we increased our industrial potential, having saved the foundation which has been created.
And the long-term planning, it's another factor, and the fact that the Republic is aiming and is planning long-term for many years to come, where are we going to, where are we heading for, because we have the strategy of the economy development up to 2030. It is approved by the law, by the legislation bodies. And it's important that the parliament and the government and the president will share the tasks that we are facing. And along with that, to implement that strategy, that approach, to gain that momentum, we managed to do that thanks to the continuity principle. We don't go for these abrupt moves and take into account some part of our DNA, that entrepreneurial skills that we have in our nation's mentality, and the ability to peacefully coexist, to put it so. I mean, between different religions and cultures, and the respect we pay to elderly people. And that's part of the culture that is not connected directly with the industry and economy, but still it's setting the pace for the economical development and the way we see the development of new projects, and the fact that investors are coming to the Republic, they see that trajectory, they see how the Republic continuously developed in 2000s and since 2010. Since the president, Mr. Rustam Minnikhan, was elected as a president and he worked as a prime minister. Well, that continuity is all about predictivity. And for the investors that are implementing major investment projects, and even for SMEs, that's certain confidence about the situation, that there will be no abrupt changes and no unexpected moves from the government, and they see the course that the Republic is following, and it gives them the confidence. And thanks to that, we support quite high level of investment. Of course, we want more, but annually the Republic receives about 40 billion rubles as an investment. That means we create new jobs, that next year this money invested will give new production and will foster the creation of new added value thus ensuring implementation of social projects and social well-off state. And if we gradually planning the further course of the Republic development, that every step we take is actually laying the foundation for stability of the Republic as a whole. We speak about the extensive natural resources, but it's important to take advantage from the economical perspective. I mean, these natural resources, of course, those oil and gas are being depleted, but oil refining and gas refining, that's a very solid basis, a pillar for, and you can upscale and you can develop, make it more efficient, going for in-depth refining, and it's one of the factors that allow the Republic to be confident about the future. I would agree here, and when I said that our natural resources are exhausted, and if we compare it to what we thought 10 or 20 years ago, initially at that time the forecast was that we'll run out of the oil because we've been producing it for more than 70 years. But we see how the new technologies, this agile approach, using new technologies, digital methods, searching for new areas of application, and this hard to recover oil, high viscosity oil, and the capacity of production of which is increased, and it allows not to support the level of production, but it helps us to even gain momentum. If we produce about a bit more than 32 million tons a Republic, then it is more than 36 million tons according to the last year data. Unless the limitations that we have to obey, I mean international restrictions, we could even can produce even more. So it speaks for the fact that we don't have to come up with too early conclusions, and this long-term strategy allows to turn the tide of those theories that the oil is being gradually depleted and exhausted, and it will also give the factor for gradual development. So it was the right decision not to focus on production or extracting of natural resources and getting some profit from the selling and exporting them, but also focus on the refining of this and the processing of this natural resource. So it's one of the ways to cut this dependence on the natural resources. And the Republic, as you know, we launched the Tenneco production, oil refining production, and it was launched 10 years ago, as you know, and in the history of New Russia, it was the first built from the scratch oil refinery. And thanks to the implementation of that project and Taif NK project, we saw the gradual the increase of the volume of oil that is refined from the 8 million tons of oil up to 18 million of oil, and it will grow further to 23 million. And 2/3 of the oil refined here, of the produced oil, we are planning to refine using the capacity available in the Republic. So it is important petrochemical feedstock, and the feedstock for further refining, and the next stage of the refining, in-depth refining, it creates more added value. And it is our mission to provide further refining and further when we refine the basic polymers, and then further refining and production of the finished products. And if we follow the international practices and labor distribution, every new stage creates more and more added value. If you take the prospects of the next 10 years, you mentioned Tenneco, Kamaz, Nizhnekamsk Neftekhim, that they were built by the time. Are there any flagship enterprises that were built within this period from 2010 to 2020 that you can mention and refer to on top of your head, like Kamaz, Tenneco, that we can really be proud of? I would mention here, I would refer to not one enterprise or company, but I would mention the whole domain. The course that was laid by the Prime Minister Rustam Minikhanov, that was the end of 2000s, the first decade, when we got very much involved in development of infrastructure for business and in the industrial business. Here I'm in the industrial parks, special economic zones. Very few people knew about that. what we should start with and what should we begin with. We just knew about international experience that was actively studied and analyzed in the Republic, and thanks to that, with a hindsight, we can consider 3 sites: Special Economic Zone Labuga. Last year, more than 80 billion rubles of the products produced. Kamaz Master Industrial Park, one of the biggest in Europe, whose total area will more than 1.5 million square meters on the total area, 1.5 billion US rubles. Himgrad, that's the previously Tasma factory, that's another 40 billion rubles. And if you can imagine the situation, unless there's commitment and certain risks and investment of the Republic, we won't be able to see and witness this level of production. If you put it all together, it will be more than 230 billion rubles that are coming from 3 sites, thousands of jobs created. Unless the decision that was made that time, we'll see that just the remnants of this old Tasma factory, the Labursky tractor producing factory, and some dilapidated facilities of Kamaz. And that's the situation and how it is in many other regions of Russia. And this landmark decision that was made, and 230 billion rubles, at more than Kamaz, it's more than Kamaz, Nizhny that was actually not very relevant 10 years ago. It's not unified structure. It's constantly developing in special economic zone, Annapolis and Labuga. They go further. That's the space that actually allows to scale up. It's another point of growth, I would say. It's maybe some of those the pillar fundamental projects, and besides those major industrial sites, there are some companies and enterprises in every district of the Republic, 10% of which are producing every one. So when we hear the skeptical opinions and the very few industrial companies were produced, so we're taking advantage of the Soviet legacy, of USSR legacy. So it's, if we consider Tatarstan, it's all about stereotypes. I think it's more about synergy of the legacy that we had and the new projects that actually being used on a win-win basis, and it allows to ensure this gradual growth. And these industrial parks that are focused on development of small companies in the rural areas in a short-term perspective can bring some benefit and have some be profitable, because it's more about expectations rather than real results, but they still bring something. I wouldn't say that it's more about expectations. It depends on what effect we're expecting to get. In terms of the Kazan city, the city with a 1 million people population, in an overall scale, of course, those small contributions, but those rural areas might be not very vivid, but every production, every 10, 20 jobs created, that's true value, because it gives the competitive advantage to the people living in the rural area. It gives them the hope and certain support, and gives them confidence in the future, gives them new skills, new competences, because every region has a company that provide the needs for the local market. Maybe it might be small, but there is the owner of this company provides for his family, for people working at his company. He creates his own added value, and we shouldn't expect some miracle and some breakthrough of these companies becoming a new special economic zone, Labuga. He's addressing on his own level those tasks, and he provides this sustaining of this entrepreneurial skill set. So now it's like word to mouth, like a buzz marketing. So they hear that you can become a wealthy, rich, and you can help your village and your people living in your neighborhood. That's the culture that we followed before the revolution, before the USSR, and that culture, it should become the part of the DNA, and it should be the generation shift. And young people should see that you don't have to go abroad to go in for business. It's something that will create full-fledged structure of the economy, not only in its industrial centers, but around the whole territory. And also, creating the jobs and sustaining them. You don't have to go to Vysoka Gara district to Kazan. Of course, we're reducing the labor force migration, because industrial centers are becoming the magnets for this labor force, and we have to find the way how to cover it with other sources. So we have to create conditions so people can work where they were born, where they live, where they feel comfortable. Is there any industry, Minister, that needs additional attention, additional support in Tatarstan that in short or mid-term perspective could show some beneficial and could show some big growth? We speak a lot about small and medium enterprises. Well, it's not an industry of the economy. It's about the companies from the point of view of their size. And of course, there are certain source for those who are becoming more competitive, who choose the right people, effective HR management, and they are growing to big companies, competitive companies. And here I would, the economy of Tatarstan is rather diversified for now, and on the one hand it's oil production and oil refining, chemical production, the production and scaling of the petrochemical products. So it's very diversified now. And as says people who are theorizing about the economy and industry, sometimes you have to stop diversifying it in order to create the conditions for those entrepreneurs, what new areas, promising ones they could choose, and you don't have to push and do their jobs for them. And one of the important areas that would influence all spheres of life and that are really important for industry, it's digitalization. I don't know, should I call it an industry or a new area, a new domain that definitely influences any company, any enterprise and plant in any sphere. So introduction of information technologies, digitalization, industrial, Internet of Things, big data, and algorithms of big data processing. That is the major source for increasing the labor productivity that would that will multiply and reform the way we live in the short-term perspective. And it's being done in the Republic. IT parks created in the Republic, special economic zone Innopolis and the city Innopolis. That trend is reflected in our strategy, and the Republic pays a lot of attention to attract human resources and implement new digital projects, both in the real economy and the industrial sector. The Prime Minister, Mikhail Mishustin, made a presentation in Annapolis. He said that 10 major companies in terms of capitalization in 1998. That time it was more about General Electric and ExxonMobil ranked first or among the top. And in 2019, 7 out of 10 companies basically internet companies or digital companies working with digital technologies. In 10 years' time, how will Tatarstan change in its industry and economy with this trend and focus on digitalization? Well, I think that no doubt, undoubtedly, there will be more digital technologies introduced and integrated. It will reform our heavy engineering and these unmanned technologies that will be widely used. Now we see this technology clash. Electric engines might take the lead, or hydrogen, or using the fuel cells. The discussion is still going on, and in the course of time we'll see which technology is preferable and more efficient, energy efficient. It will take its own niche, like the work that is done in the Republic in terms of the natural gas vehicle fuel, in terms of the regional transport and river transport and railway transportations. It will take its own niche, and we pay a lot of attention to that. And some other technologies that they will alter the technologies and the unmanned area vehicles. And something that is obvious and what many other people see around them. And I'm absolutely confident that our petrochemical capacity and the schools, academia created and developed in our university and technical university, it will lay a very good foundation, become the pillar for new materials, new stage in the material studies, because the polymers that we're creating nowadays, you can diversify the types of materials with the new features. It's, endless field for the invention. Sky is the limit here. And in that terms, the chemical production with a good practical application of the digital technologies, because we see the development of digital chemistry when instead of the lab tests and establishing very expensive industrial plants, and it takes a lot of calculations. Of course, they first create the digital model. And when they computing the interaction between molecules, that's a new, rather new field, and major chemical companies build data centers for addressing this task, and it creates an opportunity to create new substances in the virtual space. And then, your imagination is the limit for creating new materials, and it will alter fundamentally the way we live. And this is one of the fields that we have to lay special focus on in order to not to lag behind in this race, and to make our own contribution. And every new alteration and a new reform creates a new type of the added value, and it is the reason and actually the prerequisite for the development, well-being, and prosperity of our people. What about those extinct or endangered jobs? Because they are passing away, I would say, due to the development of Internet of Things and development of Internet. I'm speaking about the unmanned vehicles and some using an AI. As for now, we have a very active debate, and there are two major viewpoints on that situation. One of them says that we speak about the fourth industrial revolution, that at the verge of every new industrial revolution, these were the fears, and that we now invent steam engine or internal combustion engine. And what about those lashers, coachmen that riding the horses, and what we'll invent computer, and what about this typist, what they will do, or now we will create the waving machine, and what the waver will do. And every time that was a big problem, a lot of fears, and as the history lesson that we learned, and when we witnessed this technological breakthrough, it predetermined the development of new industries. When people moved to new industry, they acquired new skills, and they becoming if he was the coachman, he became the driver, and if she was a typist, for example, a note taker, and she became the computer specialist and programmer. It's just the turmoil, turbulent period when we will see creation and appearance of new jobs. 15 years ago, there were no bloggers, and now we have a lot of them. Another viewpoint says that the current industrial revolution is drastically different from the previous three ones, and its fundamental difference is about the technologies of artificial intelligence that allow to substitute a way more greater number of people, and because robots and technology are more efficient in the spheres where they can be used. I mean, the artificial intelligence and new algorithms, machine learning, and current level of the algorithm development allows us to foresee that within the next 10, 15 years, in those areas, these algorithms will be more effective and more advantageous. Up to writing, composing music, drawing pictures, and even now we see the experiments that sometimes it's very hard to differentiate the work, pieces of art created either by a human being or a computer. So proponents of this movement or these viewpoints say that sometimes we have to find a way what to do for those people, create new types of activity, and even there are some experiments in Europe when it is also happening because of that fact. They introduced the notion of the universal profit in order to support the market, so they could spend something in that market. And that's the attempt to find the approach to address what can we do in order to find some occupation for aging population, there's not occupied population. And I think the time is the best judge here, because we'll see in the course of time, because if both viewpoints are relevant, they have a lot of advantages and disadvantages, pros and cons. But I think imagination of a human is not limited. by anything. Sky is the limit. And there are a lot of options and a lot of variants, and we can't even imagine now the new jobs that will appear in the future. We must be optimistic. We'll be able to deal with that problem as well.
Just a short question. What is the strength of Tatarstan, in your opinion? Continuity and long-term perspective. What would you recommend to tourists, visitors of Kazan and Tatarstan to take with them to the places where they came from? Part of our culture. Do you have any favorite places for walks in Kazan where you like to be mostly? In the forest, in the woods, any woods. Any woods in Kazan, in Tatarstan. Would you like your children to live in Tatarstan? Undoubtedly. Is there anything that you learn from young people? I understand we're not that old, but is there something that you learn from younger generation? To be mobile, to react to the changing world quickly, to learn, to always learn. This is something that we all have to do. Thank you very much.